Yeah, well,
It's a new relaxed David. Miles over heard someone say next week is communion.
2 weeks.
He thinks that
Baptism.
keeps skipping in. I told him baptism was He's super excited.
I said it. I actually
Yeah. He's excited though. Text from this morning.
This looks like full-on camping weekend.
Yeah, I bet. And getting kids ready for school. And, yeah.
And then next week it'll be like everyone there for the...
Baptism, lots
Yeah.
of visitors, yeah. Touchdown.
David said, wait 1 minute and we'll let it pour. Have another song. What's that? Oh, yeah.
So it makes a big difference having a full-time sound because we can get these sort of stuff there. It makes it so much more comfortable. I don't know if I'm gonna play on rescue or not. Let's see how I feel.
That's the last one I thought.
If I don't play, and there's a lot bouncing off the monitors, and you turn down the monitor's attack, they can hear the meetings as well. Monitor, I just need to if I don't play with it. But if I play, then just need to play with it. But how does it sound like it? The track is so mid-rangey, I feel like I'm walking all over it sometimes. Because I'm...
Yeah,
there's not as much bass.
I kind of struggled to hear you towards that song. Like it was,
Just all muddy.
yeah,
That's why I was thinking about playing. It wasn't that I don't know what to play. It's just it sounded too muddy.
yeah. Like I feel like you could, if anything, maybe play like more of your kind of describe it, the ambient kind of thing.
Yeah, but on that song, there's so much echoing as it is.
So you're doing the first part of the surf?
Yeah, I'll hand it off to
I
Finn.
think it'll work.
He'll leave with the kids, and then I'll
When you
come
play
back.
it, when you like you're strumming,
Like just regular,
yeah,
like chords. That sounds good.
that's what I was ended up doing.
Yeah.
Because it was the only thing that kind of worked.
It was just kind of
I
hard to
was
hear
just
you.
ahead of acoustic.
Yeah, yeah.
because it would have more treble and more bass and less
You need
range.
Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott.
But you still get a pretty good effect from it. So
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna do trick after all.
I just don't have much phase range on that.
That was a real subtle fade there.
I had the volume almost to the very end because it's blasted on there.
Oh, it's still blasted?
Yeah, just
Oh.
because
Oh,
the first
okay.
song is audio.
The first song is on?
Yeah, it's fine for the first song. The first song is the no.
The second
First,
song.
computer is the song of praise.
Gotcha.
That's what I meant to say.
I was worried. I was like, what? Did you give me the wrong order?
Don't listen to Nancy.
Pastor Alex and his family are away this week. They're coming in a nice week off, resting, getting recharged, to come back for September. And so we get to worship together today. I wanted to let you know just a couple of things that are coming up. Next week, we have our membership baptism confirmation day, which is going to be really fun. So we get to celebrate a whole bunch of folks coming into faith, coming into the church, and so that will be really exciting. We'll enjoy that together. A couple of other things. Oh, I forgot to mention our nursery next door, Miss Jessica. The lovely Miss Jessica is here, and we'll be able to help you out if you want to go into the nursery. So please feel free to go on over there and meet with her. Also, you probably got a volunteer card on the way in if you haven't already filled one out. And we're just putting together our teams for September. This is a big part of our life together in church, is serving in different ministries. And if you haven't picked a team yet, there's lots of great teams here. But if you haven't picked one, Miss Erin would love to have you on the kids team. We have teaching videos for our teachers to learn how to do it. You don't have to come too early, and everything's laid out for you. And you don't have to answer all the questions either. We don't always know all the answers, and that's okay. But it is a great part of our church here is that our kids are growing in faith. And so we would love for you to think about being part of any one of these ministries. But like I said, Miss Erin would love for you to chat to her about the kids if that's something that's on your heart as well. And I wanted to remind you about our gala that's coming up on September 26th. We looked at our budget in the middle of the year and looked at the parts that we need to really fill in. And as we talked about it, we realized that the gala really is our biggest opportunity for filling in the budget that we have for the end of the year. And so we have been talking about it a lot because it's a really big event for us, and it really brings in a lot of helpful revenue for the church as we're still in this growing and replanting stage. So if you haven't already signed up and you can come, we would love to have you. There's a sign-up list on the desk. And even better, if you can invite someone you know to come along. They don't have to pay for their dinner. They come along, they learn about the story of the church, and then they can participate in the auction. They're invited to give at the end, but there's no pressure. It's just an opportunity to invest in the work of the church here. So that's awesome. And then if you are able to support a table, we have 20 tables that we're supporting, and we've got a number of folks who are willing to support them. Basically, that's a table of 8 for $400. It allows us to completely sponsor and helps to support all the other things that go in as well. So if you thought, oh, maybe I could share sponsoring a table, or that's something I could do, you can sign up for that list as well. So that and that allows us to really invite people to come for free. That's how we do it, is that we sponsor those tables for them. So great opportunities. And then there's one more thing I'm going to invite Shalane to have to talk about.
Can I just stay right there?
You can. You don't even have to move, which is.
So, also for the gala, we're doing a dessert auction. So after dinner, everybody will be able to have an auction to buy desserts in order to raise more money for the church. So we were asking anybody and their grandmother if they can make some items for our auction. So if you don't feel like you can serve by attending the gala or inviting anybody, there's still ways that you can serve, and that is making an item. So you can come and see me after the service, and then there is Kathy Pastor. I don't think she's here this week. Okay. But either of us, you can come to us, and we can definitely get you set up with that.
Yeah, you're baking a dessert for 8. So that basically that's the table and bids on that for you. Awesome, thank you. Those are all our announcements. Let's just pray, let's talk to God, let's welcome Him into our presence this morning, and just remember that it's all about Him. So let's pray together. Dear Jesus, we thank you for this long weekend. Thank you for the opportunity that it's giving some of our families to get away, to go camping, to get that last little weekend of getting ready. We also thank you for all us who have gathered today. Thank you for bringing us together as your family to worship you, to love you, to praise you, and to invite you into our lives afresh every week. And God, we pray that this morning that everything that we do, from the singing to the praying to the sermon, the scripture, all of it would lift you up and would shine the light of your Son, Jesus, who is the Savior of our world. And we pray in His name. Amen. We're going to start with a new song. So, if anybody wants to help me with this, I have a great. We're going to do a brand new song, and it's called He is Yahweh. Do you know what that name Yahweh is? Any of the kids know? Do you know what Yahweh is? It is. It's God's name in Hebrew. Yahweh is His name. And you might say, no way, and I say, Yahweh. Yahweh, that's his name. Yahweh, and it's kind of like breathing. It's a beautiful name. And so this song is called He is Yahweh, about who God is. And it's all these different things that God is. And one of the things, it's kind of neat, this is right out of our along the fence that we have. These are, do you know what these are called? Anybody know what these are? I don't. Rose of Sharon. This is called the Rose of Sharon. That's one of the names that we give to God. Because in Isaiah it says that God blooms like a desert, like a rose in the desert. And so one of the names we call him is the Rose of Sharon. So when we sing that, we got this nice, beautiful arrangement here to remind us of what a Rose of Sharon is. Right? So we're going to sing this song together. If you stand up and you watch me for the actions. The Rose of Sharon is like a bowl. We're doing like the top. So that's one thing you can know. And the other thing we're going to do is this, because it's kind of like a Y, like a YMCA, but it's also Yahweh. We're gonna do, so that action, you can pick a Y. It's a Y for Yahweh.
Don't go past the Y.
Yeah, no, All right, so let's do this.
I also just want to say too, since we didn't have any drummers this week, Sean, who's the music director at Erskine, made us a really cool drum track to go with the song. So we're having a mutually beneficial partnership now.
Yeah.
So thanks, Sean. Okay.
Here we go. So let's see what the name of this game is. It is called Stop Children, What's That Sound? What is that sound? So in this game, we have to listen to the sound. You want to hear that song again? Can you hear that theme again? Stop children, what's that sound? Everybody, what's going down? Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Yeah. All right, so this is the game. We're going to have to listen to the sound and figure out what it is. You guys ready? Now these all kind of sound the same. They're all kind of buzzy type sounds, so we're going to have to try and figure out what they are. So let's see what the first sound is. That's an interesting sound. Anybody have a guess? Do we need a hint? Let's try a hint. Give us a little hint. Oh, what is that? Yeah. It's a what? A chainsaw. Let's see if you're right. You're right. It was a chainsaw. You knew that, didn't you, Ellie? You had that. You had that. I know you did. Okay, so we got a second sound. What's this sound? What is it? Lawnmower. Let's see. Let's take a peek. Is that a lawnmower? Oh, weed whacker. Is it a weed whacker? You're right. It is a weed whacker. Good one. All right. Third one. Listen carefully. Oh, that was a lefty. What is that? You think it's a helicopter? Let's see if that's on the. Oh, I think you're right. Is it a helicopter? Yay! Got it. Okay, awesome. All right, two more. Listen carefully. Somebody else. You just like answer all. What do you think it is? Let's take a peek and see if it looks kind of like. You think you're right? Does that look like a mini vacuum? All right, is it vacuum cleaner? You're right. Good job. Awesome. Okay, last one. Last one. That's a weird one.
What's that sound?
What is that sound? Does anybody have a guess yet before we peek? What do you think it is? That? Yep. Whatever's under there, you were right. But we don't know what it is. And you get. Let's take a peek and then listen again. What did you say it was? You think it's a drone? I don't know if it's a drone. You were right! It was a drone. Good guess. It sounded like a flock of bees. I don't know if bees come in flocks. Makes sense. A swarm of bees. That's much better than a flock of bees. Good job. We unlocked it. So let's see what our scripture is. A brand new scripture. Wow. A brand new scripture. Another song. And who wants to help me read this? Who can help me read this? You're going to help me read it? Okay, Liam. I'll help you as well. We're going to read this together. Ready? The Lord is my light, and He saves me. Why would I fear anyone? The Lord protects my life. Why should I be afraid? That's a cool verse. You know what that says? It says, if God is there, why would I be afraid? If God's protecting me, why would I be afraid? So you want to see this all together? We'll try and say this all together. And then, because you know next week some of that will be blocked off. So we better start getting it in our head. Let's read this together. All of our nations read it together. The Lord is my light, and He saves me. Why would I fear anyone? The Lord protects my life. Why should I be afraid? I love that. That is a great verse to remember when we're scared, especially to have that verse in our memory would be really good. So, let's reveal now. What do we have to do now? Yes, come on up, Bruce. We need to turn the handle and get this thing opened up. Here we go. Turn. Good job, Bruce. What does that say? What does it say, Ellie? God frees. God frees. God frees. No? Not God frees? Freezes you? No? What does it mean? Oh, frees people. That makes much more sense than what I said. Does you think that's what it means? God sets us free, He frees? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, that is cool. let's see what our question says that might help us understand the ways that God frees us. I would love to know. Let's see what we've got here. Our question today is, what is something that you wish was free? Paul, what do you wish was free? Parents, what do you wish was free? I just sent 2 kids to college. I wish that was free. That would be awesome. So why don't we think about the things that we think would be free, and you guys can go back and fill these in, and while we do that, our adults are going to keep singing and worshiping, and we'll make this all part of our special morning with God. So let's go to the back. And the praise team will lead a song now. You guys all
Everyone else, let's stand. We're just going to sing. This is an old hymn, but it really works with today's theme. And just invite you to stand and let's really give God the praise.
We have tout le monde. Wow. Going all French, AKA everything. You wish everything was free? Good plan. You would like that. That would be awesome. A red velvet cake done in red. Ellen, you love a red velvet cake that's free? I agree. I love red velvet cake. It's delicious, especially the white icing. Snake and every single animal in the world. All of our parents are glad those aren't free. Really, really bad. We don't necessarily all want the animals we want. Here's one, Christmas. Okay, Mom, who read this? Yes, we wish Christmas was free. Actually, Bruce wrote it. So, Bruce, very wise for your age about financial issues around Christmas. Awesome. Here's a good one. Lego. Who else wishes Lego was free? Yeah, I know. I do too. I would love having unlimited Lego. That would be amazing. Aww. Here's a political statement. It's Willy, the orca. Yes. Let us free Willy. Let us free Willy, the orca. Bird food. Yup. Daddy seeds. There's a detail. Very detailed. Yes, these are really, really good. That's awesome. So many things that we wish were free. I think this story today is about something that's free, but it's not free like money free. It's free like being set free. And this is something that the Israelites really wish that they were free. So we're going to take a look at that. And you know what? We're going to, actually, Pastor Alex is going to be here in voice today. We're going to hear Pastor Alex in the story. So let's turn our eyes to the screen and let's learn, see today's big God story.
As time went on, Joseph and his family passed on, and so did the king of Egypt that allowed Joseph and his family to live there. And a new king came, who did not know Joseph and did not like Joseph's people. Things began to change for God's people. Things went from being awesome and wonderful to being downright awful. Joseph's family, his ancestors, were now slaves in Egypt, forced to work for the Egyptians and do the things that the king wanted. The people cried out to God. Their hearts were broken, their backs were sore. They asked God to send someone to rescue them. And God heard their cry and sent the people Moses, one of their own, who had actually grown up in the palace of the Egyptians, so he knew them well. God sent Moses to free his people. So Moses came before Pharaoh and said to him, I speak to you on behalf of the God of the Israelites. He has seen the hurt of his people. He has heard their cry. You must let them go. The Pharaoh did not like this plan and simply said no. But God knew this would happen and told Moses to prepare for this. Don't worry, he said. With the staff in your hand, I will show Pharaoh all of my wonders, and he will let my people go. And so God unleashed his wonders on Egypt. Each time Pharaoh said no, God sent another incredible wonder to change his mind. Everything from the water in Egypt turning to blood, frogs all over the place, fire from heaven, hailstones that smashed and broke things, and still Pharaoh said no, 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 until he could take it no more. The Bible tells us that each time God sent a sign to protect his people, Pharaoh's heart got harder and harder and harder and harder and harder until, at last, he relented. He stopped fighting and told God's people they could leave. After all they had been through, God had freed his people. They left Egypt that very night with God leading the way. They were on their way to their new home, a home they could call their own, because God frees.
Wow, that's a great story. That's an awesome part of the big God story. A really important part is when God's people are set free and they go back to their special land. There's more about that story we're going to find out next week. It's not that easy. They don't just get to go there. But we'll find out more about that next week. And here's our slice for this week, which is, who's that? Now we know. Well, it's not Joseph. It's, who is it? Who is just there? No, Jesus, no! Who is the guy on the screen we were just talking about? Good paying attention. set his people free by going to the Pharaoh and standing up to him with God's blessing. So you're going to get your page today. You're going to get your special page that goes in your journal. And I'm going to send you guys off, but let's pray first, and then our friends will get ready for the rest of their exploring time, and you can have your exploring time. So let's pray together. Lord, thank you so much for setting us free from all kinds of things. And Lord, this morning we want to know more about this. We want to know more about how you set us free from all the things that we wrestle with. So help us to learn from your word and from your teachers here in the church. Thank you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys are off, and we're going to stay here in our invite the congregation. You can stand up, walk around the room, shake a hand, learn the name, grab some more coffee, and we're going to continue to worship.
Is this
for just a few
the
minutes.
fourth song?
Stand up.
Third. Fourth song. Fourth. Good morning.
Brent, how about you? Good, good. Oh, I had the summer, right? Yeah. Flew by. Yeah. Last little calm before the storm. Yeah.
I kind of figured that, but I'm not sure if you had it.
It's raining, it is.
So as soon as we're done the song, we'll take a sermons later. Yeah. After the song.
wrestle with the feeling that we deserve you. We can wrestle with feelings that we have any place in your presence at all. Especially when our sins are creeping up behind us, then God, we can think, you don't want us around you. But Lord, you have open arms. You have an open heart. You are ready to receive us at any moment. You desire us. You want us. You invite us into your presence. And you want to see us set free and transformed for life with you. Thank you, God, for your word. Thank you for this time. Thank you for Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. This morning in the kids' time in our family Big God Story, we heard about Moses and Pharaoh and the experience Pharaoh had in terms of Moses bringing God's plagues to him over and over. And we saw the what they call the heart-o-meter going harder and harder, and that idea of Pharaoh's heart hardening and hardening and hardening. And I've been thinking a lot about hardening hearts this week and just thinking, wow, that's something that as followers of Christ and just as human beings, that the idea of a hard heart is something that we really need to think about and wrestle with and understand how it comes about and how do we escape that hard-heartedness. And what's so interesting is that we see in Scripture this idea of a hardening heart. It comes up over and over again. It's not just here. We see, if you look for a hardening heart or that idea of a poisoning heart, it appears all the way through Scripture. But the story of Pharaoh is the first time that the Scripture talks about a hard heart. It's the very first time in Exodus 4 that we see that phrase used. And so, whenever you see something for the first time in Scripture, it's always, you usually really pay attention because God really reveals stuff the first time something happens. Not that he doesn't later as well, but when you see it for the first time, pay attention because you're going to learn something fundamental about God and about our relationship with him. And the interesting thing, if we look at this story, is the way that we hear about hardening heart. And it's not where we might have predicted if we were writing the story ourselves. The first time we hear about this idea of a hardened heart is actually in when God is talking to Moses, before he ever sends him back to Egypt. He's talking to Moses, he's telling him his plan, and then in Exodus 4:21, we read that the Lord said to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have given you the power to do. In other words, all the plagues that he's going to send. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. God says, I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. This is a real kind of stumbling phrase when you think about it, because it sounds like what God's saying is, I'm the one who's going to make him stubborn. I'm the one who's going to cause him not to let his people go. And then as Christians, we can sit there going, is that something that God does? Does he harden hearts? Like, is that why I was in such a bad mood last week? Because God was hardening my heart? And is that why I ate that second tub of ice cream? Because I was really upset because it's God's fault that my heart's getting hard? No. You know, you gotta, if that's where you're struggling with, you go back 2 weeks and you listen to Alex's sermon on free will. You deal with that then. You did an excellent job. No, that's not what it's saying. It's not telling us that God is hardening our hearts and making us stubborn and we can point to him when we're feeling like we have a hard heart. But it does mean something, and it does tell us something that we need to wrestle with. So what is it that's going on here? What is happening with Pharaoh, and why does God say, I will harden his heart so that he will not let his people go? Why does he want this to happen? And so to answer that question, best to look to Scripture and let the Scripture teach us what happens. So that's the first time we hear the word harden. And then it comes up again and again throughout the story of as the Pharaoh is receiving these plagues, as these plagues are happening. So let's look at three of those times. Sort of the first three. So the first plague that God sends is the Nile, turning the Nile to blood. And when he does this, he, Moses comes to Pharaoh and says, Pharaoh, let my people free. Set God's people free. And Pharaoh says, no, I'm not going to set the people free. And Moses says, well, then God's going to send a plague. And he says, I don't believe you, whatever. And then God sends this plague, the Nile turning to blood. And for a moment, Pharaoh is really shocked and scared, and he wonders what's happening. And then in this first one, his magicians, like the court magicians, say, oh, that's just a trick. That's just a magic trick. I can do that. So the court magicians take some water, and they make it turn to blood. And what it says is in verse 7:22, it says, "But the Egyptian magicians did the same things by their secret arts, and the Pharaoh's heart became hard. He would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said." So for a minute, Pharaoh looks like he's really intrigued by what's going on, scared, nervous, and then when he sees that the magicians can do the same thing, it says his heart got harder. And then in the plague where the frogs come, so God sends a pile of frogs all over the place, and the frogs are everywhere, and then he says, "Oh, if please ask God to take away the frogs," and the frogs all go away. And then in verse 8:15 it says, "When Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said." So he sees this miracle, he's scared, he's upset, "Oh, please do something about it," but then when it's fixed, his heart goes harder again, his heart goes harder. And then later on in the next chapter, 9:34, there's rain, hail, and thunder falling. And again, he asks Moses to make it stop. And again, God stops it. And then in verse 34, it says, "When Pharaoh saw that the rain and hail and thunder had stopped, he sinned again. He and his officials hardened their hearts." That's so cool about this. So every time God's glory comes, the Pharaoh gets scared, but it doesn't say his heart softened. And then right afterwards, as soon as everything goes back to fine again, his heart hardens. God's glory comes, his heart hardens. God's glory comes, his heart hardens. I just find that so interesting. Because if you look at other places in Scripture, if you look at God's people, the people who end up following God and surrendering their lives to him, it's exactly the opposite, isn't it? Like when Moses sees God, he's overwhelmed, he's taking off his shoes, he's down in front of God, he's saying yes to him to do this crazy thing. When Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, when Moses, David, Elijah, when all of these figures from Scripture see God's glory, their hearts go soft, they turn to the Lord, they surrender to him, they give their lives to him. But then there's people like Pharaoh who see God's glory and it gets harder, their hearts get harder. What's the difference? Imagine you've got two fields. And one of the fields is nice, rich, thick soil. It's got seedlings in it. It's moist. It's sitting there. It's all planted and ready to go. And right beside it is another field that's wet and muddy and filled with clay. And imagine the sun comes out over those two fields. Got the beating hot heat of the sun on those two fields. What happens to the first field? While the sun shines on it, the plants come to life. They grow. They spring to life. There's all this new life, new health, new growth. The sun beats on the very same sun beats on the field next to it, and what happens? The mud, the clay start to harden. As the water evaporates, it gets harder and harder, and it bakes into this rock like just dead, like just nothing there. In the one case, the sun causes growth and health, and in the other case, it causes hardness and lifelessness. Isn't it like that with our hearts? Isn't it like that when we encounter God? Haven't we seen that in people's lives? That some people, when they encounter the glory of God, they surrender their lives. When we see God's glory in our life, we see him shining in areas of our life, we turn to him, we surrender, we give our lives. And then some people, when they see something, they ask for God to give them a sign or to rescue them, and right afterwards they turn their hearts away. It's like instead of having that rich heart of soil, they've got the clay, the wet, the muddy, the bakeable soil. Jesus talked about that. He talked about the different types of soil of the human heart. That the word falls on one soil and grows to life, and falls on another soil and is lost or baked away or taken away by the birds. God says he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart. Does he shine his glory on Pharaoh? Yeah, he absolutely does. And does he know that Pharaoh's going to respond the way he does? Yeah, he does. So does he harden Pharaoh's heart? Yes, he did. But don't feel sorry for Pharaoh, okay? Pharaoh is like a genocidal maniac. This was a tyrant who was enslaving entire people and using them to build his buildings. This was not like a warm, soft, fuzzy heart ready for God's love, you know? And so that heart that had just become so cold and hard in the light of God's glory, seeing all those miracles, his heart just went hard, completely and utterly hard. And God got the chance to show his glory to the rest of the world, even though Pharaoh completely missed it. All Pharaoh saw was so cool to me that it matters how our hearts are when God appears to us. When we see God in our life, it matters what the condition of our heart is. And if we've got soft hearts, if we've got hearts ready to receive God, when we see His glory, we come to life. The other interesting thing I think about this passage when it comes to hardening of hearts is how there's an element of repetition. And if we really want to see this, it helps to look at other passages where Scripture talks about a hardened heart. Do you remember the very next time that Scripture says that some hearts were hardened? It's literally just after Pharaoh lets the people go, and then God leads them through the Red Sea. Spoilers for next week, don't tell your kids. Leads them through the Red Sea, gets them to the other side, and then as soon as the people are in the desert, as soon as they're free, and remember, they've seen all of these miracles, these amazing sights of God, as soon as they're inconvenienced in the desert, they start complaining. Oh, we have no water, we have no food. Well, we have food, but we don't like that food. We want different food. My feet hurt. And the people keep complaining more and more and more. And there's this element of repetition in a hardening of hearts. This element of like, it's not just the one time, but it's doing it over and over and over that seems to bake the heart, that seems to bring out that hardness, that creates that unfertile, dead soil in our hearts. And I know we are all susceptible to that. I know we're all susceptible to getting a hardening of our hearts in different ways, aren't we? My grandpa, on my mom's side, he lived in Victoria, and when he moved into his house, there was a tree right on the edge of his property in the front yard, and so you know the way a tree is, like it was on his property, but the branches went out onto the neighboring property. And then, so he bought this house, and then this neighbor moved in, about the same age, and my grandpa was crotchety, okay? This neighbor moved in, equally crotchety, so they should have got along, right? But no, it was fine, they got along at the beginning, and then the issue of this tree came up, because the tree would drop stuff on the neighbor's lawn. And so the neighbor complained to my grandpa and said, you should really cut that tree down because it's leaving stuff on my lawn. But instead of doing that, my grandpa would trim his side and leave the other side so that it would dump more stuff. And then the neighbor started to try to get his dog to pee on the tree to maybe kill it, or it was just, and there was this escalation year over year. When we'd go and visit them, we didn't even know who his neighbor was because he wouldn't come out of his house to see us, and all my grandpa did was complain about this neighbor, and presumably the neighbor did the same about him. Year after year after year, the two of them fought over this tree. So, when I was in my teens, my grandpa died. And we heard about it, and so we flew there the next day to go to Victoria to be there for whatever was going to happen. So we flew there, so the very next day after we heard, we flew into Victoria, we came up to the house, and guess what had happened to the tree? The neighbor had cut it down. I kid you not, the first thought the neighbor had when he heard that my grandpa was dead was, I get to cut the tree down now. Kind of a hard heart. That would be their first impulse, cut down the tree. But all I could see looking back at that is just the repetition, the hardening and hardening and hardening of their hearts that was happening both to my grandpa and to his neighbor. That somehow they just fell into this pattern of getting more and more bitter and more angry and more upset, and it poisoned their hearts. And when we have poisoned hearts, we can't even see God's glory. We can't even see the goodness that God's doing. Who of us can say we've never had a hardening heart somewhere or other? Maybe it was something small, maybe it was an employee that you work with whose nose whistled. And after you're fine at the beginning, and then after years and years, you're just I'm going to stuff cotton balls up that nose and it keeps whistling. We just get this this anger, this disproportionate anger about something. Or maybe you've had a teacher in the past, and the teacher would talk down to you every time you went to see them about your kid, and you'd be like, seriously, this teacher talks, I'm more educated than them, I know more than them, how can he talk down to me? And we get this kind of hardness around that relationship. Or sometimes it can happen with our spouses or the people we love. You start to get into this pattern of fighting that you just keep falling into the same trap. And the more you fight, the more hard you get, and you start to say, I don't even care. I don't even care if we figure this out. You get to the point of, have you seen this happen in marriages where they're fighting over what time the person gets home, and it never seems to be resolved, and eventually one of them's saying, well, I don't even care what time you get home anymore. You know, the opposite of love isn't hate, right? The opposite of love is apathy. It's like, I don't care. You get to the point where you don't even care. That's a hardening heart. That's a hardening heart. And the harder your heart gets, the harder it is to let God in, to let the joy in, to let the gratitude in. We've all struggled with hard hearts, believe me. And it doesn't just happen in relationships. We can get a hard heart in our own lives with our own actions. Is there any area of your life where you started doing something? It's maybe not, maybe it's just to relieve stress. Maybe you're like going on Facebook all the time, like, oh, I just do it to relieve stress. And then after a while you find out that you can't live without it, and you have to check it, and you get anxious when you're not able to look at it. And it's like the more you do it, the harder it gets to stop. Or maybe there's an addiction in your life. You know, a lot of people will end up finding an area of the internet they know they shouldn't have been on, and yet they just find themselves going back more and more to that same place and just can't seem to pull themselves away from it. Our hearts can harden, and it always seems to happen with this repetition, this over and over, this hardening and hardening. How do we stop that? When you start to get a hard heart, how do you soften? How do you release yourself from the grip of that? How do you make sure that you don't end up like Pharaoh, like the cracked, broken, dried out, clay-filled heart? God has some good suggestions about this. One of my favorite promises of Scripture is in Ezekiel. It speaks directly to this. When God's people in that time were having the same problem, they were repeating their sin over and over and over again, and got into this place where their hearts were really hard to God. The prophet Ezekiel came, and this is what he said. An amazing promise. He said, I will give you a new heart, says God, and a new spirit I will put within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes and be careful to obey my rules. The first thing we can do with a hard heart is that we can admit that we have it, and we can turn to God and say, God, my heart is getting really hard. We can see this building up tendency, this repetition, this over and over. We can say, God, my heart is hard. I need you to replace this heart. I need you to get this stone out of me, God, because it's weighing me down. It's drying out and it's killing me. We can turn to God and we can say, I need you to take this heart of stone out of me and put in a heart of flesh. God honors that prayer. I've been in that place where my heart was so hard I thought it would never recover. And God can take that rock out of our heart and put in a heart of flesh. Maybe you need to talk to someone about it to do that. Maybe you need to turn to a Christian friend or to your pastor, someone. We'll talk to Alice, talk to myself. Maybe we need to pray this together, but God will answer this prayer. And the first step is we have to admit it. My heart's getting hard, God. I need you to do something about it. In loving God, in turning to Him, in giving our lives over to Him, He can replace that hard stone. And then once our heart starts to get hard, and once we've replaced it, and God's given us a new heart, and we start to love God with that heart, and we start to get the blood flowing, and once we have that heart transplant, how do we keep it soft? If God replaces it, if He relieves us from that stone, that heart of stone, how do we keep it soft? In Zechariah 7:9, talking to a people whose heart had turned as hard as flint, Scripture says, God says, this is what the Lord Almighty says, administer true justice, show mercy and compassion to one another. In other words, love your neighbor, show mercy. If somebody's irritating you, pour into their lives, pray for them. Ask God, what is going on in this person's life that they keep irritating me? Or what is going on in my life that I am having this conflict? You pray for them. You pray over them. You pray into their lives. You show compassion and mercy. I met this guy last week when I was at Erskine, and he talked to me about how he had been totally, utterly trapped by drugs. His life was living around heroin and meth. That was his life. It was like an episode of Intervention. The guy was entirely and utterly trapped in this life of living in drugs. And he got to the point in his life where he's like, it's either I'm going to die or I need God in my life. It's one or the other. And he says he went home to Poland where he was born. He was sitting in a park and he's just started praying for the first time. He said, God, I need you. I'm lost. My heart is, I'm done. And then he says in this moment, it was like God literally took that old heart out and put a new heart in. He said it was like his whole world changed in that moment. And he didn't lose his need for drugs. He didn't, nothing changed physically. He still had to fight through all those things, but it's like God changed his heart in a moment. And then he said, from that moment on, I got into Narcotics Anonymous, NA, and I started working through my issues, and I started fighting for this. And he said, after a while, it started to get easier, and then I started to find that I was able to live my life again, and all those problems went away. And then he said, the weirdest thing happened is his heart started to get hard again. Not over drugs, but now he was just annoyed at other people and struggling with relationships. And he goes, God, what's going on? And then God led him to start just serving other people. He sort of got pulled into doing some work in a local home. And it's like God softened his heart again. In loving other people, in serving, in compassion, in mercy, and grace, God softened up his heart again. And he said, I would literally die if I didn't serve other people. My heart would harden up and I'd be right back to where I was if I didn't do that, if I didn't live out compassion and mercy and love. You know what's so cool about this? It's really just two things. The two things Jesus always talked about. You want to get your heart a new heart? Love God. You want to keep your heart soft? Love your neighbor. Love God. Love your neighbor. Righteousness and mercy, compassion and love. That's what keeps our hearts soft. That's what keeps us open to his miracles. That's what keeps us open to his grace and his wonders. That's how we stop losing that wonder at God's creation, what he's doing in our lives. If your heart's hardening, ask God to give you a new heart. Keep it soft by loving those around you. We're designed for this, guys. We're designed to love God and love each other. Our heart hardens like when we, eat too much cholesterol, or the way our veins harden, like arteriosclerosis. Anybody? When we eat things that aren't meant for us, our hearts harden. When we live in a way that we aren't meant to, our hearts harden. God's built us for these things, so let's live the way God designed us to live. With soft hearts. I'm going to respond with a song, and I would love for you to take this, sing along with it, but also to use it as a chance to just invite God to soften your heart. If you could do a little diagnosis, where's my heart hardening? Where do I need God to just replace that with the heart of flesh again? And as we sing, we're also going to give. We're going to offer to God back part of what he's given us. Let's sing together. up high in our lives. We want to give you that first place. And when our hearts are getting hard, we just can't let you in the way that we want to. We can't give you that first place in our lives. So Lord, if there are areas of our heart that are hurting, that are blocking you out, that are stopping us from seeing your glory, then we pray, Lord, that you would replace those parts. That you would take those hard rocks out of our heart, Lord, and replace them with a heart of flesh. Give us a fresh eyes, fresh heart to see people, to see their struggles and their experiences, to say no to the things that are hurting us and yes to the things that bring life. Lord, whatever areas of our life have been harmed by sin, we pray that you would take those things away so that we would be able to experience your glory. So that we wouldn't be like Pharaoh, missing your glory, but God, that we would be experiencing you in the fullness of life that you have for us. Lord, we know that there are constant struggles in this life. There are things that we are always working through and fighting against and trying to get on top of. And those things can harden our hearts too. So Lord, we lift those things up to you today. We lift up our fears. We lift up our struggles. We lift up our health worries. We lift up those that we know are hurting and grieving to you. We know that God, it's good to grieve. It is good to be worried. It is okay to be concerned. But Lord, we don't want those things to hold us back on our journey. So we give them to you this morning. We hold them up to you, and we trust you to take care of those things for us as we work through our life. Lord, we thank you for our kids and our families that are away on vacation, and for those who are here, and pray that, Lord, you would constantly be growing your faith in our family, helping us to know you better. We pray for the year ahead in school and for the first week of school. We pray for parents who have to say goodbye to little ones for the first time, that you would help them. We pray that you would be with our kids in school, helping them to learn and grow and make good friendships. And Lord, we thank you for this morning. Lord, we pray all these things in the words that your Son Jesus taught us as one family to say together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. All right, we're going to end up with a final song together that's about how God rescues us and frees us. It's called Rescuer. And the big thing you have to do in this song is we go, hey, with a hand up. Everybody want to try that together? Hey! Oh, that was not everybody. Let's try that again. Hey! We're not doing this song until I see a bunch of fists in the air. Let's go. Hey! There you go. Let's do this song together. Rescuer.
1, 2, 3. He's a
There's good news for the captain.
There we go. All right. Look at each other and say these words. May you know that you are loved.
May you know that you are loved
By God and by your family.
by God and by your family.
May your heart be soft.
May your heart be soft
And your life be open.
and your life be open
To wherever God is leading you.
to wherever God is leading you
Today and always.
today and always.
Thanks, Sally. Awesome. Have a wonderful week. Have a great week of school, kids. We'll see you back next Sunday for a very special service. Looking forward to it. Have a great week, guys. My man, I like your name. That's great. Amazing.
I got confused because you were sitting here, so I thought, oh, Aaron must not have, they must put all the kids together. So then I told everybody except Aaron, and I'm like, oh no, she's not here. And I was like, how am I going to do this? So then I said, no. He's like, you all put all the kids together. So then I went to